BMW M2 CS, the last of the current BMW M2s, and they really have saved the best till last. It is nigh on perfect, but let us show you through some of the things that set this apart from the regular M2 and M2 competition. So let's start around the front of the M2, where along with a lot of bug splatter, which is going to be a standard feature I think on this car, you've got this carbon fiber lower splitter, and you can see it's got a bit more of an aero lip to it. Then these extra vents along the bottom. Looks pretty mean. It doesn't come out a huge amount, so it doesn't protrude all that much. Should be fine getting over speed bumps and all that kind of stuff, but it looks really, really smart. You've got the black kidney grills, and then you have the CRFP bonnet as well, which has some extra detailing. Looks pretty cool. You can just about, if you catch the light, you can kind of see it has, you can see the carbon weave through there, and you've got those 3 vents. It looks fabulous. You've got a more pronounced bonnet dome as well, a power dome on the bonnet, and usual really smart looking headlights. So it rides on 19-inch wheels, and not only do they look good, they come shod in Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 rubber. Feels really good. I really like this tire. I think it handles really well. It gives you a nice amount of grip, and even when it does start to break away, it gives you a nice bit of notice. It doesn't just snap away. But also look at those brakes. They are absolutely enormous, and you do need them because this thing can build up a rate of pace very, very quickly. But there's a good amount of feel through them, and yeah, just look at those gold calipers. Don't they look absolutely ace? Big fan of those. It just adds to the whole mean look of the M2 CS. Now you get these carbon fiber door mirrors like we've seen on other BMW M cars. The way they're shaped helps with the airflow. And then there is also a CRFP roof. This comes from the M2 race car, and what this does is, as well as obviously reducing weight, it lowers the center of gravity of the car, and it also helps with overall rigidity too. So that's a kind of a nice feature. It looks pretty good. You've got quite a it's actually quite like a large weave pattern you can see in it. And then also that extends to the rear. There's now a more of a upright rear spoiler on the back. It has the center section that's a little bit lower. Doesn't add a great deal of downforce. Adds a little bit, but it's really more about just improving and keeping a good aero balance with the car. But it looks pretty good, especially it's quite a contrast when you see the CS in this lighter color. Also getting the carbon fiber treatment is the rear diffuser. Looks pretty good. It's a bit more aggressive looking, and you've got the quad exhaust there as well, so really adds to the stance, especially when you see just how this car sits. It sits really, really well. Got pretty decent tires on the rear too. So yeah, that's the M2 CS exterior. Let's go have a look. Oh, I'll show you the boot. People always like to see the boot. It's important. It is currently full of my luggage. You've still got a pretty decent boot. As you can see, it's full of my luggage, but there's a pretty useful amount of room in there. Unlike a lot of modern cars, it is actually worth lifting the bonnet of the M2 CS, because just look at that. You've got this beautiful carbon fiber brace all wrapping all the way around the engine, and yeah, it just looks absolutely fantastic. Really does look the biz. And you've got this CRFP bonnet as well, which does look pretty good. I can't imagine it's going to be the cheapest thing if you ever have to repair or replace it, but it does look really, really good. Now let's go inside, because there's quite a lot of features to show you inside here. Before I sit in, I'll just show you these seats. Now there is the novelty factor of the fact that these M2 symbols light up at night when you unlock the car. They are illuminated, which some people love, some people hate. I don't really mind, it's a little bit of a show-offy thing, but if you've got an M2 CS, why would you not want to show it off? You've got the M colours here, and then you've got this kind of hollowed out backs, so you've just got a support down the centre, and you can stick your hand and whoever's sitting in the back can tickle you as you drive. You've got a Alcantara on the sides here, and then leather all in here as well, so it's pretty good. Then first of all, you've got 3 pedals in here, a good bit of room in there too. I'll show you the rear actually, because it is reasonably practical back here. They're not huge seats, they don't have a massive amount of headroom. There's only 2 in the back. You've got this sort of tray in the middle. Not that anyone is really going to be able to get their feet anyway in there. And you've got CS embroidered there in the bottom of the headrest too. So yeah, looks pretty good. First things first, this steering wheel. You get this Alcantara steering wheel, which looks absolutely fantastic. You got your M button there, and yeah, it looks pretty ace. There's also, you can see they do have a 12 o'clock marker here, so that looks pretty good. And then you've got M2 or your M1 and M2 buttons here. So that's, for me when I'm driving, that's great. You can just thumb either of those as you drive, and then it's all just the usual BMW controls. Now the display isn't necessarily huge, certainly going by today's standards where we've got anything up to 16-inch curved displays on a Ferrari Roma. This looks a bit more basic, but personally I love the simplicity of the whole thing. It's just clear, straightforward, it's easy to read. You're just going to want to look down when you're driving quickly and glance at it, and it's no issues at all there. And there's not really anything different here, so if you've been in an M2 or an M2 competition, it's all going to look very familiar here. You do have Apple CarPlay, you've got your display here, so this is your infotainment system, and you've got all the usual sort of features. Everything is in there that you're going to want to need. You can connect your phone, but then there's a couple of other really nice touches. You've got this CS logo here. It's basically, this is Alcantara, and you can see there's kind of a red shining through on it. Just if it will focus, there you go. That looks really, really ace. I love that. It's a really nice, neat touch, and it just adds to a little bit more of a special feel with this car. On the doors, you also have carbon fiber door pulls, Alcantara inserts, decent armrest, red stitching, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty nice. You've also, there's a upgraded Harman Kardon stereo. I'll be honest, in the pretty much entire time I've been driving this car, I haven't had the radio on because I've just been using the engine instead. It's much nicer. Then the just to move to the, I guess, the center console, you've got nice short stubby manual gear shifter here, 6 speeds. These are a couple of the different features for, you've got your park control, and then that's for your steering, your adaptive dampers, and your engine mode, and then your traction control there as well. So it's not a very cluttered thing. You've got 2 cup holders, you've got a 12-volt socket, you've got this little space here. There's a manual handbrake on it, and also, which is kind of neat, you've got this, well, first of all, you've got this really gorgeous carbon fiber panel which runs all the way through, and that just really lifts it, you know, because they could have just put a plastic thing in there, but no, this is a special car and it deserves a special inserts. And then you've got a USB port, just the one that's in there, and then all this Alcantara space here. So you don't have an armrest, or, you know, well, I mean, that is your armrest really, I guess, but you don't have any sort of storage or any sort of cubby areas in the center console. find yourself doing that quite a lot if you're driving a BMW M2 CS. It is entirely understandable. This is the CS. It's the swan song of the current generation or outgoing BMW M2, and it is the perfect BMW M car. And that's bound to upset some people, but let me explain, because this is taking all the right ingredients. The BMW M2 was already a fantastic car, but it was always just slightly lacking in a couple of areas. So what they've now done is added a bit more power. So this engine now has 450 horsepower. As you've seen from the interior, swathes of carbon fiber, Alcantara, and these fantastic sport seats. But there's also a CRFP bonnet, a carbon fiber roof, which comes from the BMW M2 race car. That also, A, looks good, B, reduces weight, but it also increases overall rigidity of the car, stiffness of the car, and that has a positive effect on handling. There is also a couple of other neat features. There is more modes now. You have a bank of 3 buttons here which allow you to change certain things. So I can have 3 different steering settings. I don't know why you'd need 3 different steering settings, but you've got Comfort, which is the lightest model, Sport, and then Sport Plus. I find Sport is fine. I mean, yeah, either one is perfectly good. And to be honest, I haven't found myself changing through the different steering modes after trying them. There's not a great deal of difference between them. You then have obviously 3 engine modes. So you have Efficient, Sport, and Sport Plus. And obviously that affects how the characteristic and how the engine performs. Interestingly as well, the peak power now arrives later on in the rev range, which, if anything, just encourages you to drive the thing on a little bit more. But then I come to the last thing, and this is the one thing for me that sets the CS apart from the M2, and that is the fact that it now has adaptive dampers, because the first M2 didn't have that, and it was the one thing when I drove that car that I thought, I just wish it had adaptive dampers, just to even out the kind of rougher stuff when you're just trundling around town, or you're not on a nice smooth racetrack or a great fantastic driving road. You got to live with these things. These are everyday cars, right? So I'm really glad that it has that, actually. That alone is nearly worth buying this car for. But yeah, that's a big help. I think it's really just much nicer. You've got you've got 3 settings. You've got Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus. Leaving it in Comfort it definitely softens it up a little bit more. Although if you are going to drive it harder on faster roads, or if you're on kind of bumpier roads, it can sort of result in it moving around a little bit more, kind of bobbing up and down. That's fine, but just there are sometimes you're going to be in a situation where you need to be, it's actually better to have it in the slightly stiffer mode. Each to their own. Everyone has their own preference for these things, but still you have a choice now, and that's really good to have choice. But without doubt, the best thing about this car is that it's got a manual transmission. It's got a 6-speed box, 3 pedals at your feet, and it's a joy to use. It just feels so right as a driver's car. I mean, this really for me is a great driver's car because its size, it's not a huge car. If you tried threading a current generation BMW M4 down a slightly narrow country road, and it can get a bit hairy at times because it's a big car. The M2 CS is shrink wrapped, it's much smaller, it's more compact. The wheelbase, the width of the axles, it's just kind of, for me personally, it's a bit of a kind of golden formula, as it were. It just feels so much righter. and obviously you then got 450 horsepower that you can exploit. And for me, being able to exploit 450 horsepower is much better than having 700 horsepower under your foot and not really ever being able to be in a position that you can use it properly. So that's a really big plus for me as well. But back to this manual gearbox, it's really nice to use, I have to say. BMWs have often had that kind of, I'm not going to say notchy, but a kind of a mechanical feel to it, and this feels really like that. It's just got this beautiful machined feel to it that, you know, you feel it going out of the gear, across the box, and slotting in the next gear. There's no sort of sloppiness to it. It just feels really nice. And you know, when I have cars like that, and given how that feels and how that engine sounds, you end up playing with the engine more because it's just so enjoyable. You want to get the most out of that engine. And also, this will auto blip on the downshift, so you can probably hear. So you're not going to fluff a shift. Even better again. And as an overall package, this, having a manual, having that engine, having all this setup is really just fantastic. Now you can, if you want, have an automatic transmission as well. It comes with the 7-speed M DCT, and that's very, very good as well, I have to say. It's, you know, like BMW, when it comes to the automatics, they've kind of got it licked. They do a really, really great job with setting them up. And obviously with the automatic, then you have further modes that you can adjust how the characteristic of the automatic transmission is as well. But we're here, we're driving a manual. For me, this is the one to have though. Even the ergonomics of the whole thing just feel absolutely spot on. You got this round steering wheel. It's round. There's no silly flat bottom on it. It's just a nice, perfectly round steering wheel. And you've got your M1 and M2 buttons right here at your left thumb. I just cannot get enough of driving this. The way it reverberates through the cabin, it's got this real deep, sonorous tone. It's like when you hear a huge silverback gorilla with their huge chest cavity falling as they shout. This is what it sounds like. Oh, what a thing. What a thing. This car, you've got to drive one of these things. That's all I'm going to say. You have got to drive an M2 CS. And even the brake pedal has a really good amount of feel to it. It's very easy to modulate. And that's useful given the fact that this has absolute dinner plates for brake discs. And they really do stop this thing. This thing hauls up like you wouldn't believe. I think this is the best BMW M car that the company has made to date. And also when I look at where we're going with automatic transmissions and moving towards some slightly crazy horsepower figures, I think this could be the last great, and I mean truly great, BMW M car. Because you've just got all that power that I said, you know, you can use it, it's so usable, it's so tractable, and that's what these cars are about. The driver's car at the end of the day. And yes, I know you've got to market these things to people all over the world, but this is a driver's car. If you are serious about your driving, you like your driving, the BMW M2 CS is right up there with the very best. It has instantly slotted into my top 3 cars ever, and yeah, I want to own one of these. I really do. It's just absolutely a wonderful car. There's nothing I would change about this at all, really. I mean, I've been driving this for a few days now, and I've been thinking, what would I change? What would I alter? I don't think I'd change a single thing. This, out of the box, as is absolutely perfect. Thank you, BMW engineers, BMW M engineers, if you're seeing this. You've done a stellar job. This car is fantastic. You need to go and drive one of these things. If you ever get the chance, do not pass up an opportunity to drive an M2 CS. Hope you've enjoyed our review of the M2 CS. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. Get involved in the comments. We'd love to know what you think. Is this one of the great BMW M cars of all time? I think it is. Let's battle it out in the comments section. And as ever, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the Complete Car YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you have, thank you. And don't forget, if you click the notification bell, next time we upload a review, you'll get a little ping to go and watch it. So thanks for watching.